You are listening to Geeksterialia's podcast. Hey there, welcome to Geeksterilia's podcast, your favorite podcast about sci-fi and fantasy series, movies, and literature, as well as pop culture in general. My name is Cecilia, and well, welcome once again to another author talk. This is our second author talk, and it's really exciting because this time I bring you a story that is it, it could easily be portrayed as a local story of my hometown, even though it's actually a road trip story. But uh, I want you to I want you to meet Angel Valenzuela, a good friend of mine from a long time ago, as is usual in this podcast. Welcome, Angel. How are you doing?
Hi, Ceci. I'm doing great, and thank you for having me. I'm really excited about this.
No, thank you for joining me. And well, I'm really excited to talk about this novel, the novel that you wrote that is called Hacia las luces del norte because it's written in Spanish. But
Originally, yes.
we the topic of or the title of this video or this audio, in case you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcast or whatever, it's I named it Into the Northern Lights, when it's actually rather the more accurate translation would be Towards the Northern Lights because of the way that the story develops, but we both liked it more into.
Yeah, it's a little bit more poetic, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Hmm.
I mean, since there is no official translation in English yet,
Hmm.
I guess we can play with it. I
Yeah.
like it. Into the Northern Lights.
Yeah. I actually, well, it is poetic, and once you read the novel, you really do get the into part, well, because it's a journey of self discovery in a way. Well, at least that's how I perceived it. But well,
Yeah.
you you'll get your opportunity to develop it more into it. But for those who are watching that haven't read the novel, or well, only English speakers, well, let me tell you a brief about the story. Well, it's just well, Demetrio. I was going to say Demetrio, but no, it's Demetrio. Demetrio is getting married, but he wants to make one last epic road trip from El Paso, Texas to Canada before the big day, with hopes to see the Northern Lights, accompanied by his best friend and future best man, Andres, who tells the story and shares with us his big secret love. Into the Northern Lights is Angel Valenzuela's first published novel, and he joins us to talk about his creative process and writing journey of this homoerotic novel, often as impulsive yet romantic as his main character slash narrator. That's what I wrote
Wow.
about it.
Yeah. What a presentation.
Yeah, and well, I especially like that I introduced it through Demetrio instead of through Andres. But
Yeah, and this is a first time because normally in all the talks I've given or the book presentations, um, it's the other way around normally
mm-hmm,
because Andres is the main character and is also the narrator,
mm-hmm,
and I don't know, it's like only natural that people refer to this character first.
mm-hmm,
But I like it that you did it the other way around because I think Demetrio, and we'll talk about this
mm-hmm,
later on, but I think he's a misunderstood character.
mm-hmm.
But we'll get there.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna tell something that it's not going to be controversial in a controversial, you know, the how people relate the word controversial to nowadays, but it's more like into what the novel is. I perceive Demetrio as the main character instead of Andres. Well, you get to know
Hmm.
Andres, of obviously, because he's the narrator. He's the one that is describing the story and, well, everything that happens. But um, it's basically a description of how he sees Demetrio and how he perceives the relationship. So, in a way, I believe that actually Demetrio is the main character, while the
Well, because he's the object of the desire here.
yeah.
So there is a lot to be said about him.
Hmm. Hmm. And while you know things about Demetrio, you get to know Andres. I mean, he's like a, I don't know how to say it, because, well, I'm not a writer, but and I don't know how about creative writing or the process, but uh, it's like an instrument to get to know the actual main character, because
Yeah,
it's like
like you get to know one character through the other or their
yes,
relationship.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And so it's very interesting because, well, like you said, you see Demetrio through the eyes of Andres, and therefore you, well, you connect with Andres, and you only get to know Andres' side of the story. So that's probably why why you say that Demetrio is actually a misunderstood character. So
Yeah,
I would, but before we get to that, I would like to ask you a few questions so that, yeah, our audience gets to know you a little bit better. Okay, so you, well, you and I met in school. You were
yeah.
my teacher. You were my teacher. I
I
was one of the,
was. I
yeah.
would like to say that I was a student as well, but no, I am older than you are. I
A little
was a
bit,
teacher.
uh, just a little bit, just a little bit. But yes, he was my teacher on graphic design. He is a graphic designer himself, but he has always had a love for words and literature. So tell me a little bit more
Yeah.
about that.
Well, it's it's like the story love story of my life. You know,
Mhm,
ever since I was a kid, I remember writing. I always have had notebooks and diaries to write on, and I would take actually I would take books and notebooks with me instead of toys. Like all the kids, whenever they would go out with their parents, would take their toys, their favorite toy, and I would take a notebook
mhm,
because I was curious like that, and I would even. This is actually a story that I'm not really sure if I remember it
mhm,
myself or I remember it because my grandma has told it so often
mhm,
that it's been ingrained in my mind. But she's always said that before I even learned how to write, I was copying letters down on my notebooks.
mhm,
So it was always there, this bug to tell stories, to yeah, storytelling was always there.
mhm,
But being from Juarez, and it's not, it's a big city and it's important in many ways. Like it's very industrial. It's a very industrial city, not very artsy. Let's say that. And I didn't feel like my voice mattered when I was 17, about to go into college and choosing a career. I didn't think I had anything to say, or that my voice mattered, or I had something to say that the world would want to listen to.
mhm, mhm,
So I guess I was a bit insecure like that, and I just kept it for myself. But as time progressed, like this need became bigger and bigger until I could just no longer keep it to myself. And then I started blogging, and when I noticed the response from the audience, I was shocked. Like I did not expect that people would actually like anything I had to say. So that kind of gave me the push to do this professionally, and I started taking workshops and here and there, and then until by this time I had already finished I had already gotten my degree in graphic design,
Mhm.
and I was working as a teacher, as you know, like you already said.
Mhm.
When I started doing my master's in creative writing,
Mhm.
and by the time I finished, I decided to put graphic design aside
Aside,
and
yeah.
focus only on my writing. Yes,
No, I haven't been able to do that. Graphic design and I have a love hate relationship out there, but but I understand. I
don't
mean,
we all graphic designers? I
don't
mean,
we all affect? Yes, yes. I mean, I do have a job to nowadays that I actually love, that I am actually excited to go to. But it is true that well, most graphic designers haven't had a great experience with their career journey. But that's not the topic today. But yeah, I understand the like the urge to do something else, something beyond to what is expected from you. I mean, yes, like you said, Juarez is not exactly the city where the arts or the creative fields thrive, right? Because
yeah.
well, it it actually has to do with a lot of the personality of the city that we live. Well, you don't know, you no longer live here, but yeah, I mean, even the weather is
Harsh.
tough. It's harsh. It's tough. So it doesn't give you much opportunity to actually step aside whatever you're doing and focus on something else that is not working or just doing something.
I think
um
it's a. I'm sorry for interrupting. I
no,
think it's
go
a
ahead.
problem that comes from as way back as its foundation. Like
Hmm.
even the name of the city originally was Paso del Norte, so it was
Hmm.
not a place to settle. It was a passage place.
Hmm.
So people don't have or don't see themselves rooted in that place.
Hmm.
And that's hard for us who were actually born and raised there. But many people still see it like that, like a
Hmm.
passage to the US,
Hmm.
and it's not a place where you want to linger.
Hmm. Yeah. So let's just say that the love for the city is not reflected through the aesthetics of the city. um Most of the people who get here, like you said, are coming,
From other
staying here
states, even
yes.
countries. Yeah.
Are staying here temporarily. Most of them stay longer than they expect, but well, yeah. uh, Juarez is always welcoming despite the what it what initially looks like, right?
But
But
that's
yeah.
one of the good points of the city, though,
Yes. Yeah.
because I always say that I have this love hate relationship with the city.
Hmm.
Uh, you know,
Don't we all?
because of this. Yeah, don't we all? Because
We
of
all.
this
Yeah.
fact, that as a creative soul, I never felt like it was let's say,
It was meant to be.
an adequate
Yeah.
environment for my arts to
Yeah.
thrive in those areas. But I have to say that people is very welcoming, and it's one of the strong points of the city.
Hmm. Yeah. And it has something very peculiar that pretty much no other city has except maybe Tijuana, but it has a dual relationship with the sister city on the other side of the border. In our case, it's
El
El Paso.
Paso.
El Paso. And I love one of the things that I love the most about your novel is that the story takes place here, and it takes place in both
Yeah.
cities, and it truly reflects the dynamic of both cities, how the relationship between the people from El Paso and the people from Juarez is developing. And it's something that no other city except maybe other borders.
Tijuana, San Diego. Yeah,
Yeah, Laredo and Nuevo Laredo and those cities have, and
yeah.
I love that. Could you please develop a little bit more, a little?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Uh, Naturally, the whole novel is a love letter to Juarez, El Paso, which
Mhm.
I, in my romanticism, like to call El Paso del Norte, because in that way I talk about both cities. I do not make
Mhm.
that distinction. Like it's there. There's a river. There's a border.
Mhm.
But and now with the pandemics, that with the the borders closed, maybe it's more visible. But in normal situations, uh,
It's really
it's
like the
just
one.
there. But
Yeah.
it's just one city
Mhm. The
with a big
borderplex.
wall in the middle. Yeah,
Yeah. The
yeah,
borderplex.
and it works like that. It's
Mhm.
like a one breathing entity.
Mhm.
It's not two separate cities. I would see it as just one city. Like
Yeah.
let's say I would say it's like the left brain and the right brain, but it's just
Right.
one brain.
Right. Right. Well, Leo states something interesting here. I think the dynamic of Juarez El Paso was different before 9/11 and after. Also, I got to experience a lot of the dynamic of Tijuana and San Diego, and the dynamic is different. Yes, of course, it is different because, well, it's for starters, it's a different city with different climate, different weather, and different
There's the sea,
there's a sea. and
and also San Diego
San
is a
Diego is,
much bigger city
yes.
than El Paso.
Mhm. So I think El Paso, I think San Diego doesn't have the feeling of neglection that El Paso has, because El Paso is like
Mhm.
the one forgotten city about from Texas that no one cares about, and it's actually much closer to New Mexico, and not just in geography but also in culture,
Yeah.
and and that I believe that makes the difference, because whether you like it or not, well, Tijuana, San Diego have a more, I don't know how to say it. Maybe it's cosmopolitan. I don't know the word, but it's a,
I guess yeah.
yeah,
It's safe to say that San Diego is bigger. It's
it's more
I don't know. The
cultural,
cultural
and yeah.
offer is
Hmm.
bigger. It's
Hmm.
closer to LA, which that also helps.
Hmm.
So
And also, I believe that they are a little bit more separate entities than we are, because we only have each other.
yeah,
We basically only have each other. The nearest city to Juarez in Mexico is 3.5 hours away in road trip.
yeah.
And so yeah, we're pretty much only have each other, and we are both the both forgotten cities of our respective
Actually, I
countries.
was. I'm going to tell you something that happened to me during my masters.
Hmm.
We went on a trip to Denver to this writer's like it was like a big event I'm sorry, the word is escaping my mind right now.
Hmm.
Like yeah, a convention.
Oh.
So it was this big national writers convention in Denver,
Hmm.
and so I was there. I was very excited. I was representing my university, UTEP, go Miners, and then
Mine are strong. Hmm.
so I was walking through the booths and talking to people, and they would say, "Oh, where are you from? Which university?" And I would say, "Well, I'm from El Paso," and then people would like, gasp, like, "Oh my God, really?" And a few people like this. There was this lady particularly, and she said, "Oh my God, I'm sorry," and I was like, "What?" I mean, I guess she didn't know how offensive that was, but
Mhm.
and I was like, yeah, and she said, "Oh, I'm sorry, that's awful because the only one time I was there, uh, there were tires burning or something." And I was like, "Girl, which part of El Paso were you at? I don't know."
El segundo barrio. I don't know. I don't know.
But that's something that doesn't happen. I mean,
Mhm.
yeah, it was weird, but yeah, it's a very lonely city, let's say.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I said that we only have each other. And now with
Yeah,
the pandemic, we don't even have that. So, yeah.
yeah, and this brings me to I'm sorry, I want to point out this question by Leo.
Oh,
It's
yeah, go for
very
it.
interesting, and
Hmm.
I love that question
Hmm.
because I actually do. I think that now with the pandemic, it's more evident than ever. But even before, like for people who are born in Juarez, El Paso, and we have been there all of our lives, and we have the visas, we go back and forth with family living in El Paso. We go to school there or work there. Maybe it's not that that bad
Hmm.
or that evident this separation. But just watching a documentary not long ago on Netflix about this border and this day when the border patrol allows people to go down the river
Oh,
and
yeah.
hug each other, and they only have 3 minutes to hug their
The
dear
relative.
ones,
Yes.
their relatives. Yeah, and it was very sad. And this is like, yeah, I think there is a parallel, to Juarez El Paso and East and West
Yeah.
Berlin.
Yeah. Well, the question for those who are not watching this video and are listening in on Spotify or just the audio, Leo says here, would you think that are parallels to Juarez, El Paso, and East West Berlin during the Cold War? Well, uh, that's the answer to the question. And yes, yes, I mean, now with the not with the wall, um, and that event that happens once a year, I believe, that when people
Yeah,
who are not able to cross back and forth meet their loved ones
reunite.
and reunite with their loved ones and relatives in the border and are have these 10 valuable minutes to actually connect face to face. It's
Yeah,
very it's both very poetic and tragic at the same time.
yeah,
Hmm. And this is one of the things that you can only see in the border in a border
yeah.
very
And I don't know,
different.
like you read the novel and you'll tell me if I succeeded, but that was one of the aims in writing
Hmm.
this novel. I wanted to be faithful to that border spirit and this particular border,
Hmm.
not just any border, even though people from all over the world who live at the border, who live in bicultural environments. Let's say I presented this novel in Spain, and they all took it very well because they have Catalonia, and they have their own language, and their everyday life they go back and forth from one language to the other, and they're both
Hmm.
official languages. So it was very natural to them.
Yeah.
Uh, Even though they like everybody can relate to this story, I think it's a very local story, as you said. It's a love letter to Juarez El Paso.
It is, and not just because of the places that you mentioned. The percolator and UTEP
Yeah,
and the community
Sunset
college,
Heights.
Sunset Heights, the community college, and a lot of places that are very iconic to El Paso. One of the things that I enjoyed the most was the Spanglish. That is not actually Spanglish. I mean,
I will say it is,
it is, but well, real Spanglish is actually mixing both
girl.
things, but like transforming one word to the other language, not just mixing. words in English to,
Okay. So would
you know.
you would say it's more like an English sprinkled Spanish?
Yeah, yeah, but to be true, it's that's actually very common. I mean, the real Spanglish actually happens in on with the Mexican
Chicano
American community.
cultures,
Yeah, on
yeah.
the Chicano
Mhm.
culture. That's real Spanglish. But what actually happens from people from Juarez and people from El Paso is it's what we see in the novel, that we are speaking one language, and suddenly we start mixing words with of the other language, not actually transforming the words, but just mixing.
Yeah,
And
like one language does not contaminate the other. Let's say we
yes,
keep it.
yes. And like Leo
Yeah,
says here, Spanglish occurs in varying degrees. Of course, yes, it does. And that's why I say that real Spanglish is actually morphing both languages and big and blending them in a monstrous and beautiful way at the same time. But yeah, and that's one of the things that I love. And you may be wondering why I invited a friend from Juarez to an English spoken podcast. And we discussed if we were going to go
why
to
are we not speaking in Spanish?
yes, we're not speaking in Spanish if we are both native Spanish speakers. Well, one of the things that made us decide to go in English is that, well, Angel here lives in Mexico City,
Yeah.
and he misses this. He misses English. He's
I miss it so much, guys. Like I really miss that going back and forth from one language to the other. Even though on a daily basis I'm working with the language because I work as a translator. Literature still does not pay my bills, unfortunately.
Mhm,
But I enjoy translating, and even though I work every day with the language, I don't get to speak it that
mhm,
much.
mhm,
And I miss having, open air TV shows and, that dual relationship
mhm.
with the US culture, Mexican culture. And here it's, I miss it. I miss it a lot. So
Yeah, so that's your answer. That's why we're
thank you.
we're
Thank you for humoring me.
You're welcome. Well, I always enjoy speaking in English, even though sometimes I do struggle. That's why I have always have some alcohol to to loosen a little bit. But yeah, Eduardo points something interesting here. El hablante hace a la lengua, una mente doble con dos lenguas, dos mundos. The speaker does the language, a mind, a double mind with two languages and two worlds, pretty much merged together. So yes.
That's a
Um,
very on point comment, I would
mm,
say, because it is said, that every language you speak is an opportunity to understand the world a bit more or a bit differently, I guess.
yeah.
One language gives you access to another mindset, completely different from your native language.
Hmm.
So the more languages you speak, I guess, the more tools you have.
Yes.
And yeah,
And not only that, I mean, I think it's proven. I'm not sure if it's scientifically proven, but it is said that when you switch from one language to the other, you actually switch your personalities as well. So it's interesting because what
I
happens
don't
with
know if
us?
it's scientific. I don't know if it's scientifically proven, but people have told me this. Like, you're a different person when you're speaking English or Spanish, or now that I'm doing Italian. I've been studying Italian for a year and a half or two, maybe.
Hmm.
I don't know, pandemic times, who knows?
I know.
But yeah,
Hmm.
so and people have told me that you actually change. It's like a different. version of you, not like a different person, but a different version of you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. So, for example, us that are constantly switching languages, it gets interesting. That gets interesting. But well, there is more to this novel than just El Paso Juarez. There
Yeah.
is also the LGBTQ plus theme, and this is
Yes.
yes. Would you tell me
That's
more
one of
about that?
the yeah, I would say that this novel has different threads or different storylines, let's
Mm-hmm.
say. There's this friendship story, there's this coming out story, there's this coming of age story,
Mm-hmm.
and heartbreak story. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it's not just about one thing. I mean, there are many themes, and one I would say yes, it's LGBTQI plus, let's
Mm-hmm.
say,
Mm-hmm.
storyline, which is about Andres being in love with his best friend Demetrio, who is straight.
As far as we know, well, we're just we're
Yeah,
just by curious. Uh-huh.
or yeah, I would say he's.
Is by
No, I would say he's straight, but he has an itch to scratch, and that's it.
okay. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that doesn't come right to our poor protagonist. But
Yeah,
yeah, I would say the reason why I stated why maybe Demetrio is superficially the main character is because we see Andres realizing many things through him and getting to know himself through him, through the feelings that
yeah,
he.
it's a good contraposition, I would say, because yeah,
Mhm,
sometimes Andres is comparing himself to Demetrio, and we get to know Andres by what he's not. Let's say Demetrio, for example, is athletic. He's like very popular, and on the other hand, we have Andres, who is a shy, skinny kid,
kid. Hmm, hmm,
kind of introvert. And the other one is a ladies' man, and everybody loves him. And being friends with him gives him access to that world. Let's say being to be a little more accepted.
hmm.
And so he's always comparing himself to that. Like Demetrio is this, and I'm not. I'm skinny. I'm not ugly, but not handsome like him. I'm not like a Greek god.
Yeah, and also their backgrounds. Well, I don't. Well, I don't recall if Andres' parents were separated or were together. I don't recall that. But actually, the socioeconomical position of Demetrio
A little
was
bit
more was a little bit more
better off.
privileged. Yes, a little bit more privileged than Andres. So that gave him um some attitude, some that Andres didn't have. Also, I mean.
Yeah, I would even go as far as to say that a little bit of entitlement
Mhm.
to
Yeah.
Demetrio.
Yes. 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 Absolutely. And you see that in the way that they approach things, because Demetrius is far more straightforward
Hmm.
than Andres. Andres usually gets a little, like you said, a little bit more shy and thinks before acting. Well, Demetrio just acts, or maybe
He
think he
just
thinks
does.
he just does. He's a doer, not a thinker. And
Yeah, and this is like one of even from the premise of the novel,
mhm,
Demetrio wants to go on this big epic road trip before
mhm,
getting married because it's what's next.
mhm,
It's what he has to do. It's what's scripted,
mhm,
and so he does it. He doesn't question it. Like, do I really want to get married? Do I have other choices? Is this what I want to do? He just accepts it and does it, but wants to, go on this road trip to watch the northern lights, the aurora borealis.
Hmm.
I don't know if I said it right in English.
I don't know either. So maybe one of you
The
guys,
aurora. No, it's
the
the
aurora
aurora borealis. Yeah.
borealis. Yes. Hmm.
And on the other hand, there's Andres, who, just by only the fact of him being gay and starting to realize it, you know, he has to question things a lot.
Hmm.
He has to question his life choices, his sexuality, and everything about his life. What moving forward now that they're you know just recently graduated from college,
Hmm.
and even he says that to Demetrio at some point. He said, "You never had to question anything about yourself. You have everything set up for you, and you take everything for granted,
Hmm.
and that's it. You don't have to sit your parents and talk to them, tell them you're gay because you're straight, and it's like that, and that's it.
Hmm.
There's nothing more to it." And Andres has to question himself a lot just by this fact alone.
Hmm. Yeah. And well, that's another origin of his insecurities, and actually why he's constantly comparing himself to Demetrio, because there's not only love, it's also some admiration, some aspiration, and some.
Yeah, I guess I would say some like a yearning, like for
Mhm.
acceptance.
Yes. Yeah, and that comes in a very interesting way, because the language that you use, it's not it is I didn't feel it as a romanticization of homosexuality and the journey of self-discovery as a homosexual person, because you the language that you use is a little bit, I don't know the word in English, but it's like a little raw, like a little precipitate, a little bit impulsive,
Hmm.
and I love that, and I appreciated that, because it truly reflects the struggle of a young man discovering his identity, and I really liked it, even though I'm a straight cisgender woman. I could relate to his struggle. I don't know why, but I could. So.
Well, I would say it has more to do not only with sexuality or
Mhm,
sexual orientation.
mhm,
It has to do with identity. Like we all, at some point in our lives, face these existential crises,
mhm,
and yeah, this is one of them for Andres,
mhm,
and that's where everyone can relate, I think.
mhm,
Because maybe, okay, you don't have that struggle, you don't face yourself with having to accept your sexual orientation or your identity, but at some point you have to question your choices, life choices, like
mhm,
I don't know, you question yourself who you are, especially, well, they are just like I said, they just graduated from college, and they're faced with this big
question mark.
responsibility, like or question mark, yeah, like now
Uh,
what?
yes. Hmm. What's next? And we see Demetrio struggling with that a little bit too, because otherwise he wouldn't have dared to do this
Yeah,
journey, to do this road trip, and what happens beyond that. Because, well, like you said, is he's just doing this because he's programmed to do it. Basically, he's basically programmed to do whatever the society and his family thinks it's
expect
next.
from him.
Yes, and
Hmm.
what's the next step, right? And his girlfriend and everything. And actually, that's a journey that many people live. I mean, not a lot of people actually dare to question uh, if the next step, quote unquote, is the right step for them. And we see this with with Demetrio, and we see this with the way he impulsively used his friend to experiment a little bit of life before getting married.
Before, yeah,
Mhm. And well, I don't know if we were with this. I believe that we're getting into spoiler territory. I don't know if you want to go further than that because,
are
well,
we? Are we?
there, yeah, well, there's a reason this novel is classified, I believe, as or described as homoerotic. But yeah, that things happen in that trip. Let's just say that things happen in that trip.
Yeah. No, I mean it's you can guess that from reading the I don't know
The description,
the
yeah.
back. Yeah,
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
back cover.
Hmm.
You can guess
Hmm.
that something happens like between these two friends,
Hmm.
and yeah, it gets steamy.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's also an interesting part because, well, I have to confess that I have never read a homoerotic novel. It's not just it's just it's not the genre that I'm naturally inclined to. I mean, I'm usually my first choices are usually a sci-fi story or a fantasy story, but
But
I
also, I don't think it's a very widespread genre, at least in Mexico.
Mhm. Yes, and so I enjoyed it because first of all it was something new. Second of all, I knew the author. And third of all, well, it's a good story and the heartbreak and the struggle and the feelings that you and the you know that that rain of feelings that you get from Andres, it's a little bit overwhelming, but
It's a
it's
roller coaster.
yes, it's a roller coaster, and that's lovely, and it's romantic at times, and and yeah, so pinche Demetrio.
Into the metro, and
It's
it's
just
rough, like you said.
it's rough. It's rough. It's a rough love story, and I enjoy that. I enjoy that very much indeed. So, but tell me a little bit about how you came up with the story. I mean, as far as I remember, you were blogging and you were publishing a
Kind
second
of,
time.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, kind of. The thing is, okay, I was at the time I was writing something else, a whole different novel,
Hmm.
but I was kind of blocked for a while. I
Hmm.
was on a scholarship. Mm, not a scholarship. It's a grant. I would say it's a grant
Hmm.
uh, to write this novel,
Hmm.
not this one, the one I was writing at the time. And I finished my term. I turned in what I had to turn in, but the results did not convince me. I was not happy with the results. I felt the novel was still unfinished, unpolished, and yeah, and I can say now safely that I was blocked because there were so many expectations to that novel. You know, I had put so many expectations on that
Hmm.
novel, so it was a very, I'm gonna say it like that. It was very pretentious because I wanted to, write literature with capital letters and golden script. um, so yeah, I had all these expectations and everything that I wanted that novel to be, that it was just not working.
Hmm.
So I was, in the middle of this writer's block when a friend called me and she said, "Well, I'm working for this online platform. It's like a Facebook, let's say, for readers and writers alike. Like you as a writer can go in and write your stuff, publish it in the manner, you know, like as an ebook.
Hmm.
And if you go in as a reader, you can browse the library we have from our catalog, but also from whatever other writers are putting out. At first, I was not very interested. I was like, if I'm to publish something for free, I'd rather do it on my blog. But then she said, well, there's a prize. There was no prize money, but that there was this the publication,
Hmm.
yeah, publishing, the publishing,
Publishing,
yeah,
publishing, yes.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
Sorry about that.
That happens. That happens to me a lot, I gotta say. But yeah, okay, publishing.
So yeah, that kind of got me excited, and the panel of judges. Uh, One of the judges was from this uh, gay LGBTQ um, specialized publishing house. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna work on that front too, not just write the short novel like they wanted, a short romantic erotic novel, but also I wanted to you know uh, check all the marks to get as much an advantage as I could.
Hmm.
So um, I had like this story in my mind that I wanted to write about a road trip, and I had the main story. It's gonna be like this. This is gonna happen. I had like the beginning, and then the main points, and then how it was gonna end. That was very clear to me. I did not, however, know what was gonna happen in between. I did not how to take them from point A to point B. So that was where the novel really happens. I think that's where
Hmm.
it gets more personal because
Yes.
it was a lot of exploration on my part of things that I've heard from friends or I felt at some point in my life or I
Hmm.
questioned myself. And yeah, that's all reflected in these in between parts, let's say. And so yeah, I started publishing or yeah, posting
Hmm.
each chapter on this platform, and the people, the audience could read, portions of it, each chapter as I was writing the novel. So it was very interesting as an
Hmm.
experiment to read what the audience was thinking about the novel beforehand, before it was even
Hmm.
finished.
Yeah, the reception beforehand, right?
Yeah,
Hmm.
it was a unique experience.
Hmm.
I don't know if I would repeat it, but I liked it as a
And it's
one-time experiment.
yeah, and it gets interesting because you can actually see how things are going before you finish the whole thing. The reception from the audience before it's kind of like with the series from Netflix or Prime and those platforms that they launch this first season, and then they
Yeah,
get the comments from the audience, and they come up with things that to fix the things that they felt that the audience felt that they were a little bit wrong.
but that's
But
yeah, that could be an opportunity, but
Mhm,
also it's kind of, I don't know. For me, it's kind of cheating,
mhm.
because you are writing a story to please the audience, and not the novel that
Yeah. Well,
wants to be.
you have to do it in a very smart way because, well, yes, you can get these comments from the audience, but you also have to like respect the storyline, right?
Hmm.
How you get to from point A to point B to point C to point D and the end. Uh, but also taking in consideration what the audience feels. It's a little tricky and it's a little well.
Well, I have to
I
say
find it
that
difficult.
I stuck to my guns with this novel, and I did not give the ending that people were kind of predicting or wanting, and I gave the ending that I knew it was natural to this story.
Yeah, and well, I didn't follow that process back in the day where while you were publishing, but I actually read the whole thing when it was published, when it was finished. I mean, and I believe it's a different journey from the people who actually read it chapter by
Online. Yeah.
yeah, online, chapter by chapter. And but yeah, I from the first moment that he says pinche Demetrio, and he says and he describes his personality, I knew I knew that it was not going to be the story that we want for Andres.
Yeah, it's not a boy meets boy story and,
Hmm.
happily ever after.
But it's actually quite realistic as well because
But I
um
would say, though, that it's a hopeful story.
yes. Hmm.
Even, even if there's heartbreak, there's hope in this novel, I think. And
Yeah.
that's something that I would like to stress.
Yes, and I believe that the the moment where you see this the culmination of Andres's journey is when he actually sees the northern lights.
Yeah.
That's why the translation into the northern lights
Into,
is is is
yeah,
very
because it's
interesting.
not,
Hmm.
it's not, I would see why it works better
Hmm.
to say into the northern lights, because it's not just walking towards, but like taking a step into something greater
Hmm.
in his life. This is
Yes.
like the metaphor.
Hmm. Yeah, and actually that's pretty interesting too because we don't get to see what Demetrio the end of Demetrio's journey.
That was one of the complaints, as I was
Yeah.
writing this novel
Hmm.
and people were reading it. And even today, because what people read back in the day when it was posted online, I wouldn't even say it's the same novel. It was the embryo, because after that, I mean, it was the first draft. I had to upload something, and it was mostly a quick revision, that I would do and quick edits. But I didn't have the whole novel to sit and read through and fix, let's say, like the normal writing process. So I had to wait until it was all finished. But by then, people had already read it,
Hmm.
and so yeah, I wouldn't say it's the same novel. This one is like a whole lot more in depth, I would say. But sorry, I lost the train
Oh
of
well,
thought.
we were saying that Demetrio didn't get to see the northern lights, at least as far as we know.
Oh, right, right, yeah. Um, and that was one of the complaints I was saying,
Hmm.
because they wanted to know what happens to Demetrio after,
Hmm.
because the novel ends with Andres alone, finishing this road trip by himself, and people want to know what happens to Demetrio. And I was like, yeah, but you know this is not that story. That's another story. That This story is about the road trip, and mainly about Andres' journey.
Hmm. Yes, it's his journey of self-discovery, and that ultimately ends with the goal that his friend had. I mean, it was this was a decision that his friend made for him.
Yeah, it was Demetrio who wanted to see the northern lights,
It
not
wasn't.
Andres. Andres
Yes.
just went along for the ride because well, he was into Demetrio.
Yes,
So
and in many ways, this whole journey is pushed by Demetrio because
yeah,
not just the road
but
trip.
then Andres, uh, once he understands everything, everything that happens during this road trip, he kind of, understands, and he takes this metaphor of the northern lights, of getting there and watching the aurora borealis. Huh. That's a hard one, the R's.
Don't worry, I can say border. I mean, it's border. I don't know.
Okay, can you try
I'm just
saying
gonna
murder?
murder. That's one of the words that's
Yeah,
difficult for me.
or
Er,
murderer?
murderer.
Yeah,
I'm just
that's
gonna
one of the hard ones.
yeah. Let's just stick with a British pronunciation with that one. Border, like border,
Border, the border.
murderer.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know the struggle.
So yeah, it finishes. This trip finishes with Andres by himself watching the aurora borealis. When it was not his plan all along, it was Demetrios, But he takes it like, okay, this happened to me, and I see it, and I let myself understand things,
Hmm.
which Demetrio didn't.
Hmm.
He didn't let himself think through things and, yeah, reflect.
Yeah, and you know what? One a relatable thing about Andres is that it's a heartbreak because you get to know yourself through heartbreak as well, not just through the things that you
Happy
supposedly
times.
yes, not
I
just
would
through
even
happiness.
argue against happiness. I mean, I'm not a pessimist, and of course, I strive for happiness like the rest of the world. But
Hmm.
I think that when everything is fine, you have less of a window to learn or to know yourself. Because
Hmm.
yeah, everything's fine. But when you really know yourself and push your limits, it's when not everything is going fine.
Hmm. And you get that impression from Demetrio that he has never had a heartbreak in his life.
He's had it easy.
Yes. So yeah, that's an interesting contrast there right there.
Yeah.
Hmm.
But I would also say, like, okay, when people read this novel, they fell in love with, at first, they feel, they fall in love with Demetrio
Hmm.
because of the way Andres describes him. As a reader, they're looking at Demetrio through Andres's eyes.
Hmm.
So it's a very loving gaze upon Demetrio, right?
Hmm.
So it's natural that the audience, the readership, gets it like that. They
Hmm.
fall in love with Demetrio, but then they by the end they hate him, and they say pinche Demetrio.
Yeah.
But I also think that he's kind of a lost soul, and one would argue that it's the other way around, that Andres is kind of lost because he admits it. I'm
Hmm.
lost,
Oh,
but just by knowing that he's lost and
yes.
willing to wander, and you know
Not all who
he
wander are
he's
lost.
exactly, he finds a way, and the other one is lost without even realizing it.
Yeah. I mean,
So
just by
I
the fact
feel
that
for Demetrio.
yes, just by the fact that he's actually willing to do something that is not his actual dream, not his actual expectation, but what society expects from him. You get to see that he's not a person that um, has the need to question himself.
No, he
Um,
does not have like a very interesting inner life, let's say.
yeah. So when he decides to do this road trip to do something exciting, um, with his friend and do what he does. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. You get to see his struggle, but in a more superficial way. But you do get his pain a little bit because
Yeah,
yeah, because of
there
his.
is pain in his life and there is confusion. It's
Mhm,
just that he decides not to face it. He decides to go on as scripted.
mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're reading your fan comments. Yeah,
Yeah.
I noticed the smile. Your eyes lit up.
Sorry about that. Yeah. Yeah, that's one of the things about reading comments live. I bet you got that when you were reading the comments from the audience that were reading your novel as
It
it
happens all
happened.
the time. And now, as you know, and we should, it's something important to say.
Hmm.
Now, this book has been adapted to the stage
Hmm.
here in Mexico City, and it's currently playing. Um, so now it's like a second breath of life for this novel, right?
Hmm.
For this story, because not only the people who had already read it are watching this play, but also the new audiences are discovering this story. And then I get the comments, and it's always, it's always nice to get complimented, but it never, it's always new, you never know how to react. And it's always like,
Yeah. 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 I mean, I'm not doing here. I'm not doing something actually new. I mean, it's just basically um, regurgitating what other people are doing. But you still get those kind of comments, and that's actually because of the way that you talk about these things and you
I
describe
don't
these
know,
things.
Ceci, don't sell yourself short. I mean, you have your own view on things, and that's, even though there's 1,000 podcasts, you have this particular style and your view on things, and that's yours, no one else's.
Yeah, well, that is true. But one of the topics that is very common here in this podcast is representation,
Yeah,
and this novel does is its part when regarding representation and to the LGBT community. Would you like to talk about it a little bit more about it? What was the
yes,
reception?
i,
What was
I
the reception?
am.
What was the
Well, the
reception for this
reception
book?
has been very good, and this has surprised me
Hmm.
really, and I have to confess, because yeah, I have to come clean. At first I was not very proud of my novel,
Hmm.
just because what I said before, I was working on this big project that I
Hmm.
it was so serious for me, and I did not see this as serious,
As a serious project.
uh, as a
Yeah.
serious novel. Yeah,
Hmm.
I didn't see it as a serious novel, and also because of the LGBT theme, I kind of considered it as like a subgenre.
Hmm.
I don't know
And
if
it's a
that
little
they
bit
say that in
and it's
English,
a little
but
bit delicate to approach as well because not
yeah, but
everybody.
also as a new voice, as a new struggling author,
Yeah.
I didn't want to be labeled as a gay author, because I was like, okay, yeah, I'm gay, but I'm so much more than that, and
Yeah.
what I write is so much more than that.
Hmm.
So I was always very conscious to avoid LGBTQI themes.
Hmm.
That subject I consciously avoided. But now I think of myself back then, and shame on me.
Yeah, because that's part of who you are and that's part of what you live, what you have experienced, and it's honest. And
And
one of the
also, I
uh-huh.
I always say now that literature in general is about human experience, and the LGBTQI lives are human, and this is, you know, part of the human experience. So why wouldn't I talk about this?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, one of the things that makes the novel what it is its honesty and like I said, the roughness of of Andres' views on his way of life. And I remember a particular review from someone famous in here in Mexico. That is, it's famous for very different reasons than literature,
Who
but
is it?
Pedrito Sola.
Oh yes, I
Yeah,
remember that.
I remember that one because,
El tío
well,
Pedrito.
El Tío Pedrito. For those who are foreign to Mexican pop culture, well, Pedro Sola is it's a I don't want to say journalist because he's not a journalist. He's actually an economist, but he is famous for being in a show, in a TV show about gossips, and a celebrity
Yeah,
gossip show, TV show. You may
let's say
wonder,
that he's a TV, a
presenter.
gossip TV show presenter. That's
Yes, a gossip
accurate,
TV
I
show
think.
presenter. You may wonder why an economist is a gossip TV show presenter. I don't know. I don't know. There are some legends, urban legends about his political career, but let's not dive into that. Let's just say that this is a man. Well, first of all, he's an mature.
He's an older man.
He's an older man. He's an older man that has never come publicly clean about his sexuality, but we all know
I think he has, like,
he
but
has.
only until recently he has said something more explicit about it.
Yes, but
Like
he
he
has
never
never.
came out,
Yes,
he never gave out, he never gave a statement, but he has started talking uh, about this topic openly.
yeah, but more like brief spurs about his life, right? His life. Not an actual I am gay. You know what, people? I am gay. It's just like oh yeah, what I experienced that blah 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 blah. And
Yeah,
when I read his comment into on Twitter, and it was on Twitter, it was like, I read this novel and I liked it because I related a lot to what I lived when I was young, when I was a younger person.
yeah, that was a rave review.
Yeah, yeah. So that got my attention. That got my attention, and well, I by this time I already.
Because we all want to picture Tio Pedrito Sola in that situation. No, he actually back then he sent me a couple of messages. We
Mhm.
spoke, and he did tell me a little bit of why it reminded him of his own experience. You know,
Yes.
a certain road trip, not as long and not, to the north. It was a short road trip here near Mexico City,
Hmm.
but it changed him uh, in many ways.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah.
and I'm not gonna say anything else because I'm not gonna talk about his personal life.
Yes. 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 Naturally. But yeah, I mean, you don't have to. I mean, you don't have to actually know the details to imagine why this novel is relatable to him and to any gay man, because well, these are questions that everybody can
Faces,
ask.
yeah.
Yes, can ask themselves. And you don't have to go on a road trip to discover this. You just have to dive into your own feelings, your own experiences, your own beliefs, if you would.
And
Uh-huh.
you know, going back a little bit, I'm just connecting the dots here
Hmm.
with what you just said and what we were talking about previously about representation. I think
Hmm.
uh, one of the things that have reconciled me with this novel is that, you know, the fact of representation, because I remember back in you know, when I was a confused teenager, and I was, or maybe not so teenager anymore. I was like in my early 20s, and I was questioning my sexuality, and I was experiencing things for the first time. And I relied on books a lot. And I was always looking for a book where I could see myself reflected, you know, that I could
Hmm.
see and know that I always say that I write and I read to know that I'm not alone in the world, to feel less alone in the world. So
Hmm.
I wanted to see people like me. But all the gay stories that I read were either poorly written or stereotypical.
Hmm.
You know, it's always the sassy gay man and different stereotypes that I would not see myself in.
Hmm.
So even though I would read them, you know, with feverishly, because I was like so anxious to know more about this lifestyle and what was coming for me. But I was never fully satisfied because I did not see myself there. And even when I found the first novel that I found and that I thought it was, you know, well written and, you know, good literature, it was Maurice by Ian Forster. But it's an old novel. It was, you know, Ian Forster was a late 19th century, early 20th century writer. So his experiences are not the same as my experiences as a 20th century, 21st century man.
Yeah, and you know what? Maybe my audience from the United States can actually find this a little bit inciting because well maybe the experience from the white gay man in the US it's absolutely not going to be the same as a Mexican guy. Uh,
Yeah, and even in Mexico, there's a whole spectrum, you know, a very wide spectrum.
mhm,
And even Andres says this in the novel. Like,
mhm,
he doesn't like the word gay because with that word comes a lot of it's also a stereotype. You know, you have the white privilege. Um, there's a very uh, politically incorrect joke in Mexico. It's about a young boy who goes to his father to come out. He comes out to his father and he says, "Dad, I'm gay." And then Dad asks him, "Well, do you wear designer clothes?" No. Well, uh, do you drive a Ferrari? Are you white? And the kid always says, "No, no, no." So it says, "Well, you're you're not gay then. You're just a F word."
mhm. Yeah.
In Spanish.
Yeah, I know
In
the
Spanish.
J word in Spanish. Yes,
Yeah.
and you know what? I for a while in my life, I hang out with a lot of gay men. Uh, and
Me
and
included.
you included, and it was always interesting to me to see that well, all of them, the ones that I hang now, though, obviously not. I'm not talking about all gay men, but many of them, if not all of them, talk about this not being comfortable with this stereotype of a gay
Yeah,
man.
because I think
Mhm,
that word is exclusive. It erases many experiences. And you can find that even in the US with POC.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of them are not comfortable wearing that label because it's always been attached to white gay men,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
even of certain position.
Yes. When you think of the word gay, you maybe think about an upper class middle white man that can afford to travel all around the world and buy all these designer clothes and always been well dressed and always been cultured and always been, and that's not always the case, especially not in
Yeah,
these third world countries where things don't come easy for minorities. And
and
yeah.
the LGBTQI plus experience is so much wider than that.
Hmm.
You know, I'm
Yeah.
not saying this to invalidate the white gay man experience, but
Hmm.
there's a lot more
There's
than
more
that.
to that. Yeah, there's more than that. And a particular friend comes to my mind. His journey of self discovery was very slow, and I accompanied him for a while in his life, and he didn't even dare to actually experience anything, any sexual relationship.
Encounters, yeah.
Yes, sexual encounters with other men on up until his late 20s, because of the way that because he was not at all comfortable with the what people sell you, or culture
Yeah, what
tells you
the gay lifestyle,
the gay
what they
lifestyle.
tell you the gay guy, yeah, what they tell you the gay lifestyle is supposed to be.
Yes, I mean, this is a very shy guy that has very is he's nerdy, and he's super shy, and
Yeah,
he has struggled a lot with depression and anxiety in his life, and he has
if yeah, I
actually.
think I know who you're talking about, and
Yeah.
I remember him
Hmm.
if
Yes,
I'm
he
right,
was.
and
He's.
and
Yeah.
he's a clear example of what we've been saying. You know that
Hmm.
you don't check all the checkbox, you don't, yeah,
Yes.
check all the check boxes,
Yes. And
and so you feel odd and left out, and yeah, so I think that's why representation is fundamental. I think
mhm,
people look for these stories to I don't know, to find validation,
yes.
to see themselves there, know that they are not the only ones, they are not alone.
Yeah. I mean, plainly just to know that you're not alone in this world, and then you're not the only one that experiencing A, B, or C. And for example, now that we brought to the topic that this particular friend of mine, um, I mean, n- I I know well, I know that me as a straight cisgender woman would never experience such a thing. But I've seen that struggle from very near. I mean, from closely seen that struggle, and in a way
Yeah,
I
I would
felt
say
some.
I wouldn't even say firsthand because he was something dear to you. So
Yes. Yeah.
not personally, you did not face those issues personally, but
Mhm.
firsthand because you were there all this time next to him.
Yeah, and this particular second-hand experience, if you want to say it like that, actually I could relate to it in another completely different sense, right? But because I had my own self discovery journey, with completely different reasons, but that struggle, that awkward social encounters with people, I can relate to him with with that. But I mean, of course, I'm not going to say that I experienced the struggles that he experienced. But watching him struggle with that was life changing for me. And this is why the journey of Andres is, I find it very connecting with
Hits
any
close to
audience.
home.
Yes, any audience can connect with what he is struggling, even if you're not gay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, I think that's the value of your novel, and that's the reason why it had good reception.
Yeah, and I'm still surprised and even very grateful actually,
Hmm.
uh, because it was something unexpected, and people have, approached me and said the most touching and personal stories that you know made me see this novel in a new light. And I said, well, this is why I wanted to write in the first hand, in the first place.
Hmm.
To connect to people, tell stories to connect with people.
Hmm.
And people are actually approaching me and telling me what this story means to them, or what this particularly this quote in particular means to them. And so yeah, that to me is priceless. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, when you write something as when I felt it personal, I know that these experiences that Andres is going through may or may not be entirely your experience. I mean, he may be loosely based on you and loosely based on other friends.
It is me. It is
Yeah,
me.
it is
It's
you. Yeah,
no, they both are. They both are.
hmm.
I would say that uh, I would say that both characters are they have a lot of me,
Hmm.
but mainly Andres. And though this novel is completely fiction, is not based on reality, a lot of Andres's questions and doubts and fears are, like I said before, when we were at the beginning of the show,
Hmm.
they are based on things I heard from friends, my friends' experiences or my experiences. The fear of becoming old in the gay community, all
Oh
these
yeah.
fears, those are very personal matters that I had to deal with. And,
Hmm.
and that, yeah, those are, I think, the points that enrich the novel, the story,
Yeah.
because it's not just about a trip,
Hmm. Yeah, and well, for straight people like me, reading this kind of content is also enlightening because you get to see this experience, you get to experience this secondhandly, and you can actually
But it's a
see.
first it's a first person narrator, so
Uh-huh,
you feel it close, I think.
uh-huh, yeah. And the importance of this kind of content, I mean, the representation doesn't only work for the represented person, it also works for the non-represented people to relate to the represented one, and
Yeah.
understand their struggles, understand that they live them.
That there's a real
Yes,
person under that label, that
yes,
people decide to cast on you.
yes, yes. And this contributes greatly to well, the fight for inclusion and for equality, for all these social important matters. And
Yeah,
this is.
I
Mhm.
have had friends, straight friends, come to me and tell me that reading the novel, they gain some insight,
Mhm.
as to what we experience as gay people.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. And and the ways they may be kind of a little bit homophobic without realizing
Mm-hmm.
that they are being
Homophobic.
impolite, homophobic, etc. Yeah, they're making homophobic remarks or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, just by this having this character questioning a lot of things, they these friends have told me that they kind of it gave them food for thought. Let's say that.
Yes, and that's very important, especially in a society as homophobic as Mexican society,
Yeah,
where homophobic remarks and jokes are so
commonplace.
yeah, no, and so engraved to our culture that is really tough to remove it. I mean, take for example the chant
Oh yeah,
for
the football
the
stadiums,
football, yes, and the
soccer,
football and
soccer in
soccer
English.
stadiums and football stadiums, uh, for the when the enemy, well the other team,
The rival team. Uh
the
huh.
rival team, where the rival team goalkeeper kicks the ball, there's this popular chant that is quite homophobic, and that
Are we allowed to say it?
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, they don't ban you for these things.
I don't know, let's be brave.
Well, the word I can say it because I've reappropriated it. So the word is puto, and it's
Uh-huh.
a very offensive word that we've been the community has been attacked with,
Hmm. Yes.
and even that's even the last word so many people have heard before they died
Hmm.
during homophobic attacks. So
Yes.
yeah, hate crimes.
Hmm.
So it's a very sensitive issue for the community.
Hmm.
But this word, I don't know, a lot of straight men feel like they are taking away their manhood or some privilege by just by saying, okay, it's incorrect for you to say this. I
Hmm.
don't know. I guess they feel like they are taking something away from them.
Hmm. And that's interesting for you, of you to say that, because I've seen, well, like I've said, I've hanged out with a lot of gay men in my life, uh, but and some of them, not all of them, but some do struggle with this, with their masculinity. I mean, they they don't relate, and even they even get mad when they associate them with feminine qualities,
Oh my god.
with feminine qualities just by being gay. And this is a huge dangerous territory for me to dive in, because
But
mhm,
you know, each life it's is a personal journey. You know,
mhm,
different people have different journeys,
yes,
and some people may realize that you know this is a toxic mindset,
mhm,
and it's like a road. You know, not everybody drives the same car, and not everybody drives at the same speed.
indeed,
Not everybody gets at the same point at the
mhm,
same time. So um, yeah, I say this because 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I was not the same gay man that I am today.
mhm,
And I was struggling with these things, especially when I was still living in Juarez, which is a much smaller city than Mexico City. And also because it's, you know, the north, there's a lot of rancheros and, you know, macho culture.
mhm,
And even though it's a, you know, it's a big city, Juarez, and being next to the U.S. and it's a very accepting city,
Hmm.
but people have their limits, and even within the gay community, uh, it's a struggle, to accept or embrace your femininity, and that it's okay to be who you are, and
Yeah.
that having some feminine traits does not make you a woman or make you less, as if being a woman was, undignified. That's stupid, but
Yeah, I mean that has to do that also has to do a lot with misogynist culture
yeah.
in Mexico, because well, we tend to associate, and I say we because it's a common disease that all people have, not just men, also women struggle with misogyny. And and I myself read back in time things that I've said or that I tweeted or that I've said before, and I say, "What? Oh my goodness! Misogynist culture is so engraved in our brains that we don't realize
Yeah.
we are saying." And this is a symptom. This is another symptom. There's nothing wrong with having feminine traits at all, and you don't have to be angry about them. If it's okay if you,
You don't have to prove
yes,
anything to anyone. You don't have
yes.
to prove that you're a man, that you don't cry at movies or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, I mean, you just have to worry to be who you are, no matter what
yeah,
everybody says.
you just do
And
yourself and
yes,
you'll be fine.
yes, and you get to see this little traits of homophobia and misogyny and in even woke people. And this
Yeah.
is big, and it's not their,
Mhm.
and it is not entirely their fault, because well, this is something that we have been society has been repeating us steadily over and over and over again until it gets into your brain, and it's hard to and it's a struggle to get away from that kind of of that train of thought. I mean,
Yeah, but it's a journey. Like I said, like if you think way back in time, back in the 80s when I was a kid,
hmm,
uh, there was hardly any representation in film and TV.
yeah,
But now there's still room, to grow. But we've come a long way,
hmm,
and we have TV shows like I'm sorry. No, there's a lot, like, okay, let's say movies like I Love Simon.
uh-huh.
No, Love Simon.
Love
Love,
Simon.
comma, Simon. Yeah. Love Simon, or this UK show that just premiered uh, a couple of months ago, I think, called It's a Sin. And or we have Pose, and where there are transgender women actually starring these TV series about them, and it's nice to see, for a change,
Hmm.
uh, actual women, trans women telling their stories, not other people, cisgender people telling their stories
Yeah.
and misrepresenting them.
Yes, that is a common mistake in 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 the screen culture, that to grab a straight cisgender actor to portray either a gay character or a trans character
Lesbian,
or
trans,
lesbian trans character.
yeah. And
Yeah.
I get it when they say, okay, I'm an actor. This is what I do. I represent people, other people, you
Yes.
know, different people from who I am. And yeah, that's right. The problem here is representation. The
Hmm.
problem is if there were more trans, gay, lesbian people telling their own stories, or even playing cisgender characters, it wouldn't be a problem if there was like opportunity. The thing is that there's not. So that's why it's important for these people to tell their own stories.
Hmm. Exactly, and it's the same with the racial element, right? Uh, People don't often quite understand why this is so important until you run into the fact that you see a person of your, your race or
Background,
your
yeah,
background misrepresented on screen, or is seen in a no in a negative way or a stereotypical way, and you get offended by it,
yeah.
or
Like the
you
Mexican characters always working the yards in the TV series.
or are narcos, or
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. And often you get
Or the sexy hot Latina.
the sexy hot Latina. That's also another misconception and stereotype. But often when we see people talking about representation, they immediately go to the black person, to the black character, the absence of black characters. And well, obviously there's absence of black characters, yes, indeed, but there's also an absence of Latinos, gay, lesbian, transgender, Asian, all of the
And wait, when these layers intersect, let's say when it's a black PLC, it's even less represented.
yes, yeah,
I said black PLC. No, it's a gay PLC. What I wanted to say. Sorry about that.
yeah, yeah. And well, we've spoken many times about this in this podcast, but yes, representation matters. It does.
Yes.
And well, I don't know if you have some other comments about your novel that are worth mentioning here.
Um, no, I guess I would like to just go back to the issue of this novel being, you know, set in the border because I think that's, you know, another character. If
Hmm.
you allow me to, the comparison. Uh, the border itself is another character. It's one of the main themes as well
Hmm.
because it's like I use the border, the setting of the novel. I use it as a metaphor for these borders that we set ourselves. Personally, sexually, even the language borders. And that's reflected here with the use of English and Spanish. And yeah, that's what I wanted to reflect upon the border in a broader sense.
Yeah, yeah, totally. I mean, and like I said before, I believe many times I am probably getting repetitive, but yes, the borders that both Demetrio and Andres are experiencing are not just physical, are mental and are psychological and emotional, and this is what makes the novel relatable for any
Yeah.
kind of reader. And
And
well,
the borders are there. They are not natural.
mhm,
They should not exist, but they are there.
mhm,
And I guess it's this journey is about of bringing down these walls,
yes,
about learning and identifying these borders that we set ourselves, that society imposes on us, and finding the ways to bring these walls down.
yeah, like the Pink Floyd said, tear down the wall. But yeah,
Bring down the
break
wall.
down the
Bring
wall.
down the wall.
And well, finally, final thoughts. Well, now that you mentioned that your story has been adapted to theater, what are your plans with this novel? Because, well, so far this novel is written in Spanish. The English version has not been published yet. Would you like to talk about this kind of plans with your novel, or maybe even an adaptation to movies or that sort of stuff? That would be
Fingers crossed.
fingers crossed. It will be a
Yeah,
good movie. Uh-huh.
I I would say so too. Yeah, I think so, and not because I wrote it. I'm not being. It's not false modesty, but it's not because I wrote it. It's because ever since I was writing it, I there was this very cinematic rhythm to the novel, and the images that were coming to me, and also it's fed by pop culture and my references, which come from cinema, from Hollywood film. So I always thought it would be a good movie, that it speaks the same language
Yeah.
as movies. There have been a couple of, there are a couple of people who have approached me about making an adaptation. So far, there have not been any official offers, but yeah, it's in the talks, and hopefully soon. Hopefully,
Yeah, I
um,
would love to see that.
yeah. There also this friend I have from Italy, and she's a translator as well, literary translator, and she was excited about translating it into Italian. I was excited too, but I guess that plan has been currently paused.
Cost, yes.
Yeah, yeah. I guess it has to do with the publishing industry. It
Mhm.
depends on the publishing houses, their interests, and but yeah, I mean, I myself personally have no plans. I'm just like letting the novel drive its own car, let's say. Taking from the metaphor of the road trip, this novel has its own journey, and I just of course I want these things to happen, but I'm kind of letting it
Un-
happen naturally. Yeah,
yeah, of course.
my plans are to write the next thing.
Yeah, hopefully our English English speaking audience is listening to this, and hopefully they will be able to read it soon.
Yeah, let's hope so. Yeah.
Yes, hope so, and that would be interesting to read, to see, because, well, I figure that the English expressions would have to turn into Spanish.
Spanish expression. Yeah, that
Yes.
you would have to kind of do a backwards translation. I don't know if I should call it that. But yeah, since the novel is written in Spanish mostly with a lot of sprinkled English phrases here and there, uh, it would have to be the other way around.
Uh-huh.
Mainly English with some Spanish here and there.
Yeah, I mean, that would add another character to the border personality thing, because now we get to see the story from the side of Pochos, from the side of Chicanos. And now maybe this is a Chicano story instead of a Mexican
But
story.
that would be great too.
Yeah, and that would be
Why
really
not?
interesting to see. That would be really interesting to see, and I would love to read it in English once again, just to see how those adaptations come up. And, well,
Yeah,
any
I myself, as a translator, sometimes I'm thinking about, what would happen if I translate my own work? How would I face some challenges? Like, how
Mhm.
would I translate this, to make it work in English? But
Yeah.
it's interesting.
Uh,
Translating is another um, creative task. You know, it's another. I would say that a translated novel. It's a different novel. It's an original novel altogether.
Hmm. Right, right, because you don't just turn a language, I mean, a word or a phrase into another language. You actually have to adapt it in order
Yeah,
to
you
the
don't translate word for word. You have to, look for the expressions, look that the translated word uh, reads naturally in that language.
no, but also that it relates to the culture that is target, and that's the interesting part of translation. Um, and well,
Yeah, but yeah, that's. I think that's why we read literature or consume fiction from other parts of the world, and we relate to them because even though we read or see foreign things that in our that are alien to us in our culture, uh, they tell universal stories, about the personal struggles, and that's where we all can relate.
mhm, exactly. Okay, so we have almost reached the end of our show. Okay, so I wanted to ask you before we finish this about your personal influences in literature.
uh
They don't necessarily have
it's
to relate to the novel, but if they
yeah, no,
do,
no, no,
okay, amazing.
not just talking about this novel, but in general. I would say my first influences would have to be soap operas. I I
As a good
know, I
Mexican
know.
would say, as a good Mexican would say, I actually spoke about it last Sunday
Yeah,
on a very dear friend of mine, Steven Stark's shows, his channel, and we would talk about soap operas
soap operas
yes,
and
and
Mexican soap operas, which are
Mexican
very specific. Yeah,
dramatic. Uh-huh.
the thing is, growing up, I did not have access to many books. There were no books in my house.
Mhm.
My parents, they were mostly preoccupied by putting a roof over our heads and putting a plate on our tables and sending us to school, but they were not like into books, so there were no books in my house. What I had were the stories that I heard from my grandparents, their old grandparents' tales, and the TV. So I watched movies on TV and the soap operas. So everything that told me a story, I took it because I was like thirsty for this, for
Mhm.
storytelling. And anything that would tell me a story, I would gladly take it.
Mhm.
So when I was a kid, there were no books, so it was soap operas, you know. And then movies. I started, you know, growing up, and my taste kind of refined a little bit, and I started watching movies, and then certain type of movies. And by 12, I was watching Almodovar, for example. He's one of my biggest influences
Yeah.
because I grew up watching his films, uh, unbeknownst to my parents. But
Mhm.
yeah, I was watching his films, and he's one of the biggest influences. Then literary influences, I would have to say, for different reasons. Uh, Alessandro Baricco, this Italian writer, what I loved first about his work, it was the language. It's such a beautiful language that it just, you know, I was very impressed.
Mhm.
I was I don't know.
Did you read it in Italian?
Yes, but just recently I have. Yeah. Actually, no, that's a little bit inaccurate. The first novel I read by him was sent to me by an Italian friend in Italian. I did not speak the language then, so I did read it like with a Spanish copy.
Okay.
Like I found the PDF. The book was not printed in Mexico yet, and I found the translation from Spain. And I read the book in Italian with the translation side to side.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, that was. But now, until recently, now that I speak the language, I've started reading it in the original language, and that's one of my influences. The other one, uh, I'm kind of I'm kind of ashamed to admit that I'm influenced by this guy because he's a shady character. I mean, he has a lot of opinions like any cisgender white man,
Mhm,
and I don't agree with most of them. But Mario Vargas Llosa, his work, at least his early work,
mhm.
I learned a lot from him, about the craft of storytelling.
Yeah.
And I have to admit that even though I hate him as a person,
Yeah.
I learned a lot from his work.
Yeah. I relate to that, but with J.K. Rowling. uh,
Damn
well,
you, JK.
I mean, I love her work.
I always when I think about JK Rowling, I always think about that Tyra Banks meme. I
Mhm.
was rooting on you.
Yeah, yeah, and it's hard to admit that one of the persons that you admire the most is not a great person. Is like losing a hero. But well, I'll stay with her work, her fabulous work, and while complaining about her truth.
In my case, my Tyra Banks moment would be like I would say something like, "I defended you on my MFA classes,"
Yeah,
because there were people who did not consider her literature, or they said that it was not serious,
yes,
and even and just because it's aimed or targeted to a certain audience, a younger audience, it doesn't mean that there's nothing to it.
yeah. I
And
mean,
I
you
was
have.
defending her, and yeah, she let me down.
I mean, as a fantasy fan, I know about that. I mean, people don't necessarily well, the mainstream don't necessarily appreciate the value of these works because they overlook fantasy as a genre that is not serious or is not accurate to represent a human struggle or a human drama, but it actually is. I mean, for example, you take The Hobbit. The Hobbit is also a children's book,
Yeah.
but it talks a lot about the hero journey and actually another. This is another example of a self discovery trip.
And also
Uh,
of not conforming to what people expect from you, kind of
yes.
like we've been discussing.
Uh huh.
It's
Yeah.
a hobbit that decides to leave the Shire. How dare he?
Yeah. Yeah. How does he dare to leave the peaceful,
To
calm?
contravene their ways. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've said it before. The hobbits are the only race in the Middle Earth that have not experienced the struggles of war and famine and evil as the other races in Middle Earth. So in that sense,
Yeah.
they are kind of privileged. Uh, so yeah, that's why once you understand that, you understand that the why Mary and Pippin are the way they are. But yeah, yeah, it's a journey of self-discovery all over again. So just in a different setting, in a different setting. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. People think that these they see them as subgenres, you know,
Hmm.
and like they were as if they were subpar or something, uh, not on par with world literature. But they can actually deal with these deep issues too. You know, uh, in my classes, I remember we were specifically discussing Harry Potter, the Harry Potter series, and about is literature always, you know, politic, you know?
Mm.
And they were saying that this type of literature is not like, how can you say that Harry Potter is politic?
It
And I was
is.
like, wait,
Have you read
there's
the
a, you know, have you read it seriously? Yeah.
uh,
Have you not read? Did you miss the whole part of the caste
Mongol?
system?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Mongol discrimination.
the classes,
Hmm.
yeah, exactly, discrimination, the whole bunch of kids throwing down a system. Come on, how is that not political?
Yeah.
Right, and there's a bunch of kids reading this that they can actually make a revolution and go against the government,
Hmm.
a whole system, you know, a racist classist system.
Yeah.
And that's why I was defending her, but now she's let me down, and I don't know, I don't know.
I choose to stay with her work. I'm not going to
Damn you,
consume.
Joanne.
I'm not going to consume anymore, but what I already have. But yeah,
Yeah, because of what it meant to you at some point before she came out and make these uh,
these controversial statements.
remarks. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah. Okay, I choose to stay with her work, but ignore what comes next.
Next.
Yeah. Okay, so we are almost done. So finally, we get to share. Well, you get to share more accurately. You get to share where people can follow your work or your just your social or whatever you want to share.
Yeah. Well, I can start with my social networks. You know, my social presence, my handle in not. I wouldn't say every social network there is because I don't have them all. I don't use TikTok, for example. There are, you know, I have my limits. There are just so many social networks that I can handle. So Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, the handle is always the same. Uh, should I spell it?
Sure.
Angvalenz. And Valence. That's my handle in every social network. Well, at least the ones I mentioned.
Hmm.
And the novel is easily, you can find it easily through Amazon, like digitally. You can find the ebook in mostly every main distributor seller.
Hmm.
It's, you know, you just look for it as Las Luces del Norte in Amazon. It's available for Kindle, and yeah, or whatever your reading platform is. You find it easily.
Okay.
Uh, Unfortunately, the print book, the paperback, is not so easily um, reachable, findable, because it's printed in Spain, it's distributed there. So unless you have access to that market, you have a summer house in Spain or whatever, it's going to be a little tricky to get it.
Okay.
But in Mexico City, the this library, no, bookstore chain is carrying it now. El Sótano.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So there you have it, and anyway, you can find these links on the description of this video. And in case you are listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or whatever podcast platform you prefer, you can also find it on the show notes of this episode. And well, thank you so much, Angel, for being here. It was a pleasure
No,
to
thank you
talk
for
about
having
this.
me. It was very nice speaking to you and getting, you know, this message or even my work to your audience.
No, it is my pleasure. I'm always looking for I'm always looking to talk about great content, and this is great content to talk about. So thank you
Well,
so much.
hopefully they like the novel and they don't
Well,
feel
if you
disappointed.
if you are Spanish speakers, well, you can read the novel without any issue. If you are Spanish enthusiasts, this is a great opportunity to for you guys to learn and understand and
I would say it's easy to read, even though it's mainly in Spanish. It has a lot
yeah,
of English, and this border issue makes it easier to read. I think for
you're
English
gonna
speakers as well.
you are going probably to struggle reading this, even though you're not Spanish proficient. But yes, you are welcome to check it out. And well, we have reached the end of this episode. Thank you so much for watching, for your like and subscription in case you are watching through YouTube, and you will find this episode later in case you're listening later, not live. Thank you so much for watching, and you will find this audio on your favorite platform uh, plat- uh, podcast platform, on your favorite podcast platform. And
Please subscribe.
yes, please subscribe and follow. And you find me on social as at Geeksterilia. And thank you so much. And may the force be with you.